Hello everybody and welcome back to more Kerbal Space Program. We last left off having a terrible spacecraft, so we're going to rebuild it. And I kind of actually just decided to really go with what we had going previously for our Minmus lander. So let's kind of load this up. Now, if we recall correctly, we had plenty of fuel. So much fuel, in fact, that we probably could have gone to a different part of the solar system and come back. So I'm thinking we might just use the exact same setup. There are a few changes that we need to make, obviously. As we learned in the last one, we definitely need one of these in order to transmit back. And I'm going to bring a few thermometers with us as well, because it'll help with the collection of science points. So that should do it. And I'm pretty sure we could just launch and go and hope for the best. And we are going to bring probably a guy with us. I'm a little hesitant to bring somebody because we might not get back. So I'm like, it's gonna be a close one. However, we should be able to do it. The only other thing that I have as, a possible suggestion as to, possibly making this thing better is if I did go with just a normal probe. So, using the Sputnik instead of the command pod. That might work a little better, but I'm not entirely sure that it would. I mean, there's a few things that I could change here, but, should we bring a Kerbal with us? Or should we not? Because we are going to land on Duna and come back. Is it too much of a risk to bring a Kerbal? I think it might be. I think it might be too much of a risk. We're going to do it, guys. We are going to get rid of... Oh, gosh, that is now in the middle of all of that. Let me move this over. Eek. Yeah, there it is. We're going to get rid of the command pod. And thus do it this way, if I can actually get this to attach properly. There we go. No, almost. There we go. Okay, so we have that. We still need our communications thing, or do we? No, we won't, because we won't be doing anything that requires going back, so we actually don't need a communications. However, that being said, I will pop this right on the, how about right there? It's a little off center, and I'm totally OCD. So let's do that. That's even worse. Okay, and we have our thermometers, so that's good. We have our landing gear, we have our lights, we have everything we'll need as far as that stuff is concerned. The last thing I suppose that I want to bring with me is a mech-jeb unit. And, don't think of this as, oh my gosh, then it's cheating. I'm not, trust me. We're just going to need this for the time being because it makes this process be sped up a little bit. So let's save this as Duna lander MK1. We will save it, we will launch, and hopefully we will get to Duna. But that is going to be without, possibly dying on the way there, because the chances of this actually going through are fairly unlikely, which is why I decided to go with a probe rather than an actual launch. So let's do our typical launch here. Get the boosters going. This is going to give us just enough thrust to launch them off, get the actual propulsion going with my main rockets underneath that, and that should get us well into orbit. And in a good spot to have a large orbit. I want to be like 300 to 600 meters, or 300,000 to 600,000 meters around Kerbin, which the reason why is it allows me to speed up time a bit better in order to get at the appropriate launch point for Duna, because you gotta do it at the right time to save as much fuel as you possibly can. And if this works and we get back, then we're gonna send instead a Kerbal over there, but this should give us enough science points to be able to make the craft that we were trying to make in the previous episode. So we'll launch those, which will have us going straight up. And let's get this gravity turn over with once we go about 10,000 meters, maybe a little bit more than that. With that payload, a fuel gun, this is actually speeding up a little bit more than what it was before. We're just making this a little easier. But we're about to hit 10,000. I'm gonna do like 13 before I start my gravity turn, just because this has quite a bit of weight to it, and I don't wanna dangle in the atmosphere too much. So let's do our gravity turn about. Let's go like right there for now, and we'll see how well that works as I balance out the roll on this thing. And time to remove a couple fuel tanks here, which will make us speed up a bit more. Obviously, we're losing thrust, but it's a whole lot less mass, that's for sure. Ooh, and you see our ship auto-corrects the roll on it because it wasn't letting me do it before. It was just stuck. I'm actually going to readjust my angle here because I'm doing the exact same thing that I didn't want to do, which is kind of being stuck to the surface a little bit. My apoapsis isn't going up nearly as much as I need it to, which is a bit unfortunate, although we still do have quite a bit of thrust, so I'm not too concerned. As long as we can get an orbit and then get a large orbit, we should be fine to get to Duna. Kind of glad I'm not bringing a Kerbal this time, though. It might end badly for them. Okay, I'm readjusting this a bit, and it's working quite well, so we're just going to go straight to the horizon here. Get ready to launch those other tanks off. Right about now. There it goes. Cool. And we still have our mech jeb unit, which is perfect. I was hoping that it wouldn't just get ripped off during launch. I've had it happen before where for whatever reason it just gets lost somewhere in the translation of moving everything. And getting rid of our stages, which is funny because I have it up here, and I have had it at the very top of my entire staging before, and for whatever reason, I lost it. Don't know what happened there, but I'm not too concerned about it happening on this one, especially after successfully getting into a bit of an atmosphere. I'm gonna wait to the apoapsis. I mean, like I said, I kind of want a huge orbit, so I'm gonna probably do about 120. There we go. And I'm going to speed up time a little bit. And then once I'm at the apoapsis, which is right about there, now I'm going to get, the rest of our orbit set up with the periapsis. Almost there. We do want 120. We are at not enough yet, but it'll grow. Having it at about 120 will make it so we can circularize our orbit. And that should be about right. Yep. Okay. Now that we're in a steady orbit, let me show you kind of what the idea here is. So, how do I want to do this? Okay, let's zoom all the way out. And let's find Duna. Where is Duna at currently? Duna is right there. So we're going to set that as our target. Now, as you see, it's on the same plane, so that's going to be a little easy to actually get to it as far as that plane change goes, because you don't actually have to make the adjustment there. I mean, it's pretty level as far as plane goes. The problem is you have to launch yourself, because actually, let me explain the physics here for a little bit. We are moving at a different rate of speed than what Duna is, right? Duna is wider. Or a wider, I guess, orbit around the sun. So what we're looking at here is its velocity is 7,172.7 meters per second. That's Duna's current velocity. Ours is 9,284.5 meters a second, which means we're moving faster around because we're closer to the gravity field, right? So we're moving faster around than what Duna is. Okay, so what's going to end up happening is we are going to end up catching up to Duna. So about like right here-ish in our orbit line, we may do a full burn, and that will swing us wide and out this direction. So that's kind of the goal. Now let me show you kind of what it's meaning here. So we're going to use the maneuver planner, and I said I would use MechJeb for things like this. So no, not the Hoffman transfer. We just want to transfer to another planet. So I'm going to create a node. So that's telling us that about right there is one of the most optimal times to do it. So when we're on this part of our orbit, which means we have to wait all of this time till we're there, then we'll make our burn, which is quite a big burn, let's be honest, and then we will be fairly close as far as the approach goes, and we can fine-tune it once we're outside of Kerbin's sphere of influence. So what we need to do instead is we are going to then delete this, right? Because we're going to change where we're at as far as this orbit goes, because we know it's quite a ways away. And I'm going to go prograde. So I'm going to face myself towards the prograde direction. And then we are going to burn and get probably 400 to 600 meters of an orbit, a circularized orbit around Kerbin. So let's just start here and go with it. We do kind of want to stay right on the prograde line. And we're just going to watch this grow until we get to about the meters we want it at. And it's about 600. Let's go 620, just to 640. That works. So we're going to speed up time, and we're going to get around to the apoapsis and make the exact same change we just did. Don't want to go too far. Perfect. Okay, now we need to switch this from being retrograde, which is what we're pointed at now, because we were prograde, but because we're at our opposite end of our orbit, we are now facing retrograde. So we want to switch around to facing prograde, which is what we're doing. We will burn. We will make our massive orbit even better, which should allow us to speed time up significantly. And that will allow us to not have such a long wait to get to Duna. Now, the reason I did this is more for me and less for you guys, because obviously I could edit all of the just sitting there and waiting out. But the MechJeb unit allows me to save fuel, know when I'm going to do the burn to begin with, right? So like on the opposite side of my orbit. So I know when I'm going to do the burn, but it's also saving me fuel because it's one of the quickest ways to get to the planet without using a ton of fuel. So that's the reason why I use the MechJeb unit. It's quite nice, actually, for little things like that. I mean, you can figure it out in your head, but yeah, I'm sure once you've done it a few times like I have, it's not so fun anymore. So we're gonna go back out to the map. We're running a little low on fuel as far as this fuel canister is concerned, but that is fine. So maneuver planner, we're gonna do the exact same thing. Transfer to another planet. Duna's our target. Boom. Okay, so it's going to tell us a terrible way to do it. So that is not going to work whatsoever. But what we can do is we can click on this, and we can then adjust it. So let's say we want to go prograde. There we go. Let's go retrograde a little bit. And boom. That's what you want to see. You want to see a perfect circle. You want to see it just go right into it. And that gets us fairly close to it, which is nice. And then we can adjust that periapsis magnificently when we're actually out of the ring of influence here. Just smaller bursts of speed will change this by millions of meters. So gonna have to be careful with that. However, we know that in 46 days we need to make our burn, so we're going to speed up time and watch our planet go around and around and around and around. But we're going to close all of this because we don't need that anymore. Okay, so I'm watching the days carefully. 5, 4, 3, 2. So I'm going to leave it about here for a minute. And I don't want to overdo it. We want under 1 day, obviously. And this burn is going to be much longer than 1 minute, 4 seconds. So we're probably going to start at about 2 minutes because we have our other engines to worry about here. So let's go to close to 1 hour. 8, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now you want to be very careful with speeding up time here because you could totally ruin your entire maneuver by just skipping over, your burn point. So you do want to be kind of careful with that. Now, it's okay to go beyond our burn point, so maybe we'll start at like 1 minute 40 seconds, 1 minute 30 seconds, and then just burn beyond that. I think that'll be fine. In fact, let's make sure we do that, about 1 minute 30 seconds. That should be just enough speed to get us in the same spot that we need to be. 3, 2, oh, okay, so here we go. I will point ourselves at our maneuver node as well. So we were a little off from it after speeding up time that much. And this fuel, we can watch up there in our resource window. It will burn out here. But let's switch over. We know we're going the right direction. And it's almost done. I'm just going to get ready just to pop and burn. Boom. Okay. So we actually have a lot more thrust than I was anticipating with these engines, so I'm going to hold off for a second. But what you will see is that our orbit here is changing, obviously, but it's going to launch us out, and it's going to have an escape trajectory from this system, and that's kind of what we were hoping for, is to have like this perfect escape trajectory. And once again, I just use MechJeb in order to set up the maneuver. Obviously, I'm doing the maneuver by myself. There are autopilot options for MechJeb, but it's not as fun, you're not doing the work yourself. Once you've removed that part of the fun, I mean, half the fun is doing the maneuver on your own, right? Once you've removed that as fun, then it's no longer, it's no longer like you're even playing the game anymore. But you see our apoapsis, as soon as we get an orbit on our apoapsis, we're just going to cut our engines. It'll happen here shortly, too. Oh, it was there. But now we have to burn retrograde, which is fine. So let's Ooh. Oh, this thing is way more maneuverable than it was previously. So we're going to remove our node. That way we can see more accurately here. Okay, just a little bit. And there it goes. Perfect. So let us check out how our fuel's actually doing, because we have the asparagus set up, obviously. Now, we do have a ton of parachutes, which might be enough to slow us down. We did have a couple extra larger ones on this, and we could have put larger parachutes on the actual fuel tanks themselves, and in hindsight, that's probably what I should have done. But I think we could do it with what we have. I'm not too concerned. So let us speed up time, which is nice, and once we get a little closer, we'll start fine-tuning our apoapsis and periapsis in regards to the Duna itself. But you do see that it is going to launch us back around over to here if we don't do anything, which in some cases is fine. If I had a probe going, that would be perfect, because I would get into range to do what I need to do my science points, and get back to Kerbin without using a whole lot of fuel at all. But what we want to do is we want to make it so we have a super close periapsis. That way we're doing an aerobrake maneuver. That way we're slowing ourselves down quite a significant amount. And as you see, the planet's coming up right behind us here. So let us slow down to make our adjustments. Now what we want to do is we kind of want to zoom in a little bit here from a different angle and kind of check where is our periapsis compared to the planet itself. Let me speed up time a little bit more. That way I can get a better view. There we go. Okay, so we're kind of on the outside, which is, that's good, actually. So let us do the slow down all the way. We're going to try a few different angles here, kind of like what we did with Midness. So I'm going to point this direction and watch it when I burn. Okay, that's more, so I want less, so it's the exact opposite of that one. So we're going to point ourselves north. I think this is north. I mean, it's got a big N. Pretty sure this is north. Okay, so you see that? I'm barely burning. It's making huge changes here, which is fine. That is what we want. And it's getting our periapsis closer, which is also what we want. So I want to get it probably sub Okay, it's going back up. So that means we want to go back the other direction. And this is the fine-tuning that you kind of want to do. Obviously, I wasn't keeping an eye on it because I'm trying to talk, and it takes a bit more concentration to talk and do this at the same time than otherwise, and about right there. So that's about as close as we're going to get doing that. Let's try straight up on the nav ball, see if that gets us closer or further. And there's ways of knowing which ways to do it. I just haven't learned it yet. Okay, that's closer, so other direction, or that's further rather. So burn from here. And there we go. Ooh, that is changing rapidly. 2, 1. Okay. We may get an encounter with Ike. So we want to be kind of careful here. Which is its moon. Okay. So we're out of the encounter with Ike, obviously. 92,000. You know what? That's good enough for the time being. We're going to quick save. We probably should have done that before, but, you know, hindsight, whatever. So we're going to get nice and close. And once we're in this sphere of influence, we'll make our final change because we are really close with that periapsis. But as you see, our angle is all wonky, and that's fine because we're going to be landing and taking off, not making a slingshot maneuver, which is a little bit more difficult to do if you're all wonky like this. Okay, oop, that was close. Let's then... Okay, so that changed rapidly upon actually entering our angle here, but that's fine. We can burn. Oh, I'm still in fast forward mode. Burn a little bit. We're just gonna bring it around. Kind of what we expected it to do. Burn a little bit more than that. Also, what is our fuel looking like? Oh, we are fine. So that's gonna angle itself under Ike, which is the moon, towards Duna. Which, if you didn't know, Duna is like a parallel to Mars. It's a little different, but it's a parallel to Mars, in case you were wondering. So let's cut the engines. We want to be very careful with this.